getting me to go into the weight room and stuff like that, you could probably ask my former coaches, was like, yeah, it was like oil and water. I go out there game day, practice. I love practice, 7-on-7, doing all that weights and all that other stuff. You got to chase me to do that. But then now from the company side of things, again, we got Dash in Between, Produce Matrix, which is a digital farmers market, focus on how we can get, agriculture into the crypto space as well too. I really just saw an opportunity to start creating businesses in this industry because of the fact that now most people don't understand it, which means that there's a great opportunity for a larger reward. And it's kind of similar to the gold rush, is that rather than me trying to go find the gold, why don't I build the shovels? Is kind of in this case where
there you go.
That's where the real money is that if you build the infrastructure of this next internet revolution, that's where you have your Amazons and your Best Buys and all these other things. So that's really one of the reasons why I started, a business in the Web3 space as I was figuring this out at the same time too.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun at all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Rich Chungong. Rich is a former professional athlete and lifelong gamer. He is the founder of Dash in Between, fusing innovation, storytelling, and next-gen technology to help clients craft truly innovative solutions. From immersive gaming worlds with AI integration in the metaverse, digital farmers markets for easier food access, to using cutting-edge technology for patented medical device creation, Dash in Between pushes boundaries and redefines what's possible. Rich has brought strategy, creativity, and execution to the world of emerging tech, building a cutting-edge creative agency specializing in Web3, AI, and game development. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Rich.
Rich, welcome to the Corporate Couch this afternoon.
Appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be on the couch.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. You're our first combined Web3 expert in combination, and the first self-professed gamer on the podcast, 150 plus guests. So there you go. Met you back in May of 2024 with the KC DAO initiative, Futures Initiative that Troy Carlson started. Mm-hmm. And I know you're a part of the advisory board there. But yeah, it was all about Web3. And I'm excited to talk to you because it's as we had coffee last week. It's a fascinating technology and what it really does, really for the world and to the individual. So to have an expert like you, I'm very honored that you came on the podcast. So thank you.
I'm excited to be here and appreciate the openness to be able to bring this to your viewers. Because again, I think that this is one of the big things is learning this new technology and how, not only individuals, but then small business owners. And again, you have the corporate couch, having corporations also understand this stuff too, because it's really going to change a lot of stuff on how we do commerce, value, money, and those many different things under the sun.
Rich, tell me a little bit. I know you grew up in Lee Summit, in a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri. Talk about what was fun for you growing up, what you love doing.
Man, yeah, so it kind of dates yourself sometimes. I was one of those kids that outside, I used to get grounded from going outside. Playing outside was my thing. Nowadays, they ground kids from iPads and whatnot and
right.
cell phones.
They want kids to go outside. Please go outside.
Please, I'm begging you. They're like, oh, it's painful now. But playing, sports all the time, neighborhood kids and whatnot, playing football, basketball, things like that. Was really kind of my fun times. I also was an artist, loved drawing, anime, cartoons, and things like that. Pokemon cards, I was always a big collector of those. I still get on my mom for my old collection that probably would have been worth a house or two now,
Yeah, right.
They're investments now, as they call them. But no, yeah. Just like I said, doing a lot of the fun things and blending in, sports as well, which kind of led to, my high school side of things of playing, high school sports, basketball, football, and those different type of things as well. Just being active was really one of my real fun things as a kid, especially during my time there.
Love that. Who were some of your sports idols growing up?
Oh, man. So Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, a huge Coach Prime fan. LeBron James. Obviously, you have Michael, Kobe Bryant, Mamba mentality. Who else? Obviously, I was a huge Chiefs fan. Priest Holmes was a big
love Priest.
Priest Holmes scoring all those touchdowns. That was back when we used to run the football down everybody's throat. Now we pass the ball all the time.
Right.
So
the Nigerian nightmare.
Like going back to those. Like I said, Trent Green, was huge fan of Trent Green and the Chiefs.
Yeah, Jamal Charles. I loved him.
Like I said, growing up and seeing a lot of those, players and things like that, that was big.
Yeah, John McGraw, former K-State star, and went on to play for the Jets and the Chiefs and the Lions. He's been on the podcast, so
that was great.
You're our second professional football player to be
appreciate
on the podcast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So did you have aspirations? I know when I was a kid, like I wanted to be an NFL quarterback. That dream ended very quickly. But like when you're 10, did you say, hey, I want to be the next LeBron or the next, Deion Sanders?
NFL, I wanted to play in the NFL. That was my big thing. My mom's always been a big football fan and whatnot, especially, families from Cameroon, Africa, and stuff like that. So being able to, kind of be in the sports side of things, she picked up, big on football once her times here. But yeah, I always wanted to, like I said, play in the league, be able to, get that box suite, and have my mom in there cheering and whatnot, kind of like the Manning bros and stuff like that.
Right. So you graduate high school. What was your decision process like to go to college?
Yeah, so went through the whole taking college visits, had a handful of offers, actually ended up signing to Missouri Western to start. Went there, which is the D2 out in St. Joe. Then after, went to a junior college, Independence Community College in Kansas. And then I finished out my career at Western Illinois, the Leathernecks in Macomb.
The leather, oh yeah, that's old school.
Yep.
That's one of the nicknames for the Marines, I think they call them the Leathernecks.
Exactly. Yeah. You hit that right on the head.
Post college, like what was your first job and how'd you get it and what was that process like?
Yeah, so as we discussed, always wanted to play, professional football. Unfortunately, didn't get a pro day and everything like that to be able to play at the NFL level. Went the alternative route and ended up playing overseas in Europe. After a year hiatus, I ended up going to sign my first contract professionally in Hungary. After that, following that, I played in Finland and then Germany. American football is growing leagues over there. Obviously, there was NFL Europe, which ended up kind of getting the bug. The NFL now is trying to bring it back with these games, throughout the season. But yeah, I played over there for about 4 years, won a couple championships, which led me all the way up to 2020. And then kind of with you asking what was my first job really kind of after football, got into sports recruiting with Next College Student Athlete. Just staying close to sports because I couldn't really identify outside of sports because it was just everything I had done from since I was a young kid and being able to just kind of just say, okay, maybe I'm just going to go into sports agency, just trying to figure out that next step. But sports was like that thing that I couldn't really get away from. But that was kind of really my first, like, I would say almost big boy pants job in this case, if you would say. Alongside, obviously, throughout that time doing, sales jobs when I came back in the States, in between seasons and things like that. But that sports recruiting job was one of the more prominent ones when I first started.
I know when I talked to John McGraw, he almost thought professional football was easier than college. His take on it was, hey, in college, playing at that level is a full-time job, but then I got classes. And when I was professional, my full-time job was
playing football. Yeah.
I had nothing else. So do you mirror that sentiment, or was yours different? Especially playing in Europe.
I definitely agree with that, because of the fact that you have a lot less distractions when, you know, your pay comes from that, you know, your security now comes from that, and you're like, okay, now what else? I think that boredom is probably one of the biggest things, is that you're like, okay, what else do I do with it's almost like Talladega Nights, like, what do I do with my hands? That part where it's like, I don't know what to do. But yeah, I think that's one of the things for me. It was kind of adjusting to time management is one of the things. And that's why you probably see a lot of athletes get in trouble. Because it's like kids, you know, you don't know what to do at that time. You're going to find
kids
trouble.
With a lot of money.
Exactly. Literally. And that's what usually happens is, you know, you're exposed to these things, and, you know, you just have time on your hands. And as, you know, as we all know, when you have time on your hands and resources and things like that, you tend to find trouble. So for me in Europe, it was just finding fun things to do. I like going to like the museums, because especially there's a lot of historic stuff over there. So I spent a lot of times going to like these huge like cathedrals and admiring the art that's in there, because it's a great way to pass time. And again, how you're going to be in old time Germany to be able to explore some of those things that you won't be able to see here in the States.
Yeah, it's so interesting to, you know, to go to Europe or, you know, the Middle East. It just, you know, countries that have this storied long time history, right? The Greece,
Exactly.
Italy, Germany. You go here and, you know, you see some place that, you know, established, you know, Kansas City, and they incorporated in, I'm making a number up because I don't know, 1785 or whatever. Yep. But they're like, it's been like since 1000, you know, AD
BC and things
1100.
Like yeah, exactly. No, and I think that's one of the interesting things for me. Again, it comes back to like, I've always been like a curious kid. So like when I go into these huge cathedrals, I don't know if you notice like the art that's like chiseled into like the top of the roof. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, in modern times, they didn't have cranes to like crank people up there. So you're probably like stacked on a bunch of wooden, you know, very unstable structures.
Yeah.
And then you're painting all day. And then we had lead paint. And I went to this whole Michelangelo thing with my girlfriend, and just learning about, you know, he was exposed to these paints that weren't, you know, that caused his sicknesses, but he was able to paint the Sistine Chapel. And I'm just sitting here just like, no AI.
On his back.
No AI. Again, that's why that's the thing I really love to emphasize. Right. So again, those are the kind of things that I like to go see in those different type of historic places, as what you mentioned.
This is not a travel show, but I have to make a comment. So I went to Italy in 2018 with my wife. I had never been there before. I'm of Italian descent. Mm-hmm. You know, food and wine is just off the charts. But I went to the Colosseum, and I'm telling you, like, that's crazy when that was built. And it's the prototype for a modern stadium. It's nuts. That's crazy. I mean, it has, you know, the different gates, and I mean,
how the waterways underneath and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, again, no computers. And that's what really fascinates me all the time is like, I've always liked history. I wasn't the greatest in school, but history was something that fascinated me because of the fact that it was like having technology and what we have now. It's, you know, it's astounding to see what humans were capable of, you know, when you think about these great structures and things like that.
Growing up in your early, you know, post-college career, you know, you're still focused on sports, being, you know, the best defensive back that you can be, and being the best athlete you can be. And your identity is tied to that. So what was kind of the big breaking point for you to kind of really say, okay, I'm not going to be, you know, an NFL DB, or I have to do something else with my life. I can't just be playing in Helsinki and, you know, Oldenburg, Germany and all that. So talk about that process for you.
What really kind of just opened my eyes to this next chapter, and I think that it was probably a lot of people as well too, was the 2020 pandemic. I was in negotiations with probably about 5 different countries at the time. Just came off another championship. I was starting to build my name over in Europe. So I was really kind of hitting my stride, to be honest, playing some of the best football, doing, you know, I'd won championships for the first time, like, because most of my time I was just, you know, a good player. I'd never really got to win.
But so without the pandemic, you would have continued.
I would have still been going. Like, honestly, probably even to this day. Like, I mean, again, I was only 28 maybe at the time.
Yeah.
Which dog years wise in football, you know, you're getting up there. But honestly, I was running the fastest. I was probably, you know,
well, 28 is your prime, probably, you know.
Exactly. So I'm feeling good, you know, and got these contracts, and I'm debating on, okay, which country am I going to go to, which makes sense. So And then the whole world shuts down. And obviously, when the world shuts down, you're basically put into early retirement when you play international football. You're not an essential worker. Exactly. Right. So for me, it was because I was at home with so much time on my hands. And then I started realizing, like, what was I started really questioning myself, like, what am I going to do next? I've done this thing for so long. I've identified with it. When people see me, the first thing they talk about is football all the time. What is next for me? And again, like many people, I kind of went through almost like a mental health crisis because it's like I didn't really know. And I think that that's one of the things that for me, COVID was a terrible time, across the board for the globe and a lot of people, and we lost a lot of lives. But for me, I think it was one of the more clarifying times for me, because that's when I started getting interested into the whole crypto and Bitcoin space, because at this point now I was starting to look at like, okay, how do I make money when I'm sitting at home? How do I make money? How do I get money to work for me? Because I was like, okay, I got to go out and work. At the time, I picked up a little gig when I first got let off, and I was working at Amazon as an essential worker. But I was like, what is an essential worker? I was like, well, Amazon is considered an essential business because they're providing, to people food and all these other things. So I started looking as like, I started seeing that in the economy now, there was starting to become a difference in businesses. And so then now I was like, okay, let me learn about money. Then as I learned about money, I realized I didn't know anything about money. So that's when I started really realizing, okay, let me start looking at this Bitcoin stuff, because this time it started creeping up, but nobody could really explain it to me. And so this is kind of what led me into, starting my business. Because I'm a why person, and I would talk to a lot of tech bros, and they would try to explain it to me. And just like many people who will probably listen to this and don't really know much about cryptocurrency, it was a bunch of tech jargon that I was like, I don't get this, and I don't see why somebody else would care about it. So going down the rabbit hole of just kind of learning this first stuff, watching a lot of YouTube videos, I was like, okay, this is just, it's like gold, but it's a limited version of gold. And now we have a transparent way of seeing all the transactions, and it's basically realizing that money at the end of the day is just a way of keeping track of who owns what and where. That's basically it. And so with all that, I mean, to kind of summarize it, I mean, it just kind of COVID really was the thing that allowed me the time to stop, because just like what you mentioned, I don't think I'd take time to transition if I continued playing the way I was, because I would have just played and I would have been la-di-da, I'm an athlete. Then luckily enough, I didn't get injured at any point. So I never had like a stopping time to be like, okay, what's next? Like I just had a good, Lord have, I was able to have a good career, no major injuries that kept me out for like a whole season or anything like that. So it was just a moving train that I didn't see myself kind of getting off of until COVID, abruptly stopped that. So that's, if that answers you in a long-winded way, that's basically how I got into the whole space.
Was there one like conversation or book or whatever it was that kind of drove you into the Web3 space? Because Bitcoin's been around for 15 years, give or take. I mean, but we're talking it's 2020. What was kind of the big push for you?
I'm a hands-on person. So again, I was talking to all these people and nobody could really explain it to me. So I was like, you know what? I got a couple bucks. Let me just throw it in one of these little coins or whatever and see what happens. Because before that, honestly, wasn't investing, wasn't doing, again, I didn't know anything about money because I was just playing football. I was like, yeah, football's going to take care of everything. I'm just going to do this. Investing wasn't something discussed in my family and stuff like that. So I was just kind of winging it through life most of the time when it came with money. But then I threw, a little bit, I believe it was into Binance at the time. I think Binance was maybe $50-$60. I think now it's like at like 800 or something like that. It's like some ridiculous number now. Watched it feverishly for like 3 or so days. So I'm just like your average first time investor. I'm just watching it like a hawk. Oh my God, it went down $2. Oh my God, it went. So I'm just watching it over and over. But then when I came in one night and it had like 4x overnight. That's when my curiosity got piqued of like, oh, so I didn't work. I just put my money in this thing and it just 4x. So then now I was like, okay, now this is what no tech person was explaining to me, is like, to get started, just put a little bit in and get curious, because you won't care about it until you have $5 in the game. And now your $5 goes to $4.75. Now you want to learn a little bit more about it. So that's really kind of where my stuff started. But then also too, being a Pokemon kid and stuff like that, NFTs was starting to like pick up interest and starting to pick up steam during that 2021, 2022 kind of bull run. And so what I saw was, I was like, okay, these are just digital Pokemon cards, but now every artist, business, creator, 11-year-old kid, I saw a 7-year-old girl made $7 million off of drawings, and she was on the Time magazine. And so for me, I was like, why don't people understand that, like, the value is changing. Now art, which is something I started in, is now becoming something that the creator can get perpetuity every time it's sold, and smart contracts and all that other tech stuff. But it was really eye-opening for me, because now I was like, man, like, any kid can become rich if they put it together with the right person or organization and things like that. So those were the kind of two things at that time that kind of piqued my interest, was, me throwing my first little couple change into cryptocurrency and it peaking at the right time. And then also to NFTs and things like that picking up steam.
NFTs seem to be hot in like 21, 22, but kind of the talk about them has died down. Why do you think that's so?
Biggest thing I think is because of the lack of true understanding. The people that are coming out with NFTs are not using them properly, in my personal opinion. I think that NFTs should be no different from a membership or some type of card. If Amex said, I always give this example, your America Express card is basically your NFT. You can't exchange your America Express card with your brother or sister because it's tied directly to your social and all those other things. Now, the reward points is the cryptocurrency that you get from using that NFT. So the perk of me having this NFT, or in this case, this Amex card, is that I get to get rewarded in this currency, in this ecosystem. Now, I can't use Amex points outside of this, but now with these partners that have agreed with them, now it's creating an ecosystem. For me, I think that once large businesses like that, for instance, Taylor Swift, if she said, hey, my next album is going to be an NFT because I don't want to put it on Spotify and I want to make all the money. Now it becomes a concept of like, oh, well, it's just a digital album that now I can use as a potential ticket to get backstage opportunity to see Taylor Swift. So I think it's once people start really putting together the proper utility. I'll give you an example here on your podcast. You can say, hey, we have the Corporate Couch Podcast NFT. And if you purchase one of these for $100, every week we give away $25 in Amazon gift cards. The only way you can get it is by having this membership. An NFT can be anything, right? Yeah, it technically can, because you could take a picture of your dog and say, hey, I have 50 pictures of my dog. They're worth $100 each. And 100% of the proceeds are going to go to Casey Pet Project. Now people are like, okay, I'll buy that because now it's going to go to Casey Pet Project. Pretty simple concept. And so
Right.
that's kind of where like I see is that NFTs died out because it was a bunch of hype, no proper utility, no proper, like I said, business plan, marketing. People were just kind of just blowing hot steam. I think now in this kind of second wave, as we're starting to see, regulation and things like that come around, we'll start seeing established businesses start to use it in small, easy ways. Like I said, memberships, digital cards, and things like that. And then it'll start to, again, pick up steam again.
So now you're one of the, I'll say, Web3 experts in the United States. I mean, because, and we've talked about like it's curiosity, it's digging in, it's starting, it's wanting to understand it. Most people don't even understand the existing money infrastructure of the United States. But then it's one thing to understand the space and invest in cryptocurrency like you did, but then what was the kind of, okay, I'm now going to start a company, and talk about that process for you?
I think so. It started when I started trying to have a conversation with my mom and trying to get her into Bitcoin. And then what I started realizing is that I was educating people. And then what I started realizing also too is that there's an opportunity from a business sense to be able to use my knowledge, which now was kind of the reverse of what I've always done all my life as an athlete. I use my body rather than my brain to make money. So this was kind of a good point for me too, where I was like, okay, if I can take my knowledge, monetize it, and then now it basically becomes, I don't have to work as hard as what I was doing as an athlete. So that was one of the key points for me, was like, I've always been a person, like getting me to go into the weight room and stuff like that. You could probably ask my former coaches, was like, yeah, it was like oil and water. Like I go out there game day, practice. I love practice, 7-on-7, doing all that weights and all that other stuff.
Right.
You got to chase me to do that. But then now from the company side of things, again, we got Dash in Between, Produce Matrix, which is a digital farmers market, focus on how we can get, agriculture into the crypto space as well too. I really just saw an opportunity to start creating businesses in this industry because of the fact that now most people don't understand it, which means that there's a great opportunity for a larger reward. And it's kind of similar to the gold rush, is that rather than me trying to go find the gold, why don't I build the shovels? Is kind of in this case where
there you go.
That's where the real money is that if you build the infrastructure of this next internet, revolution, that's where you have your Amazons and your Best Buys and all these other things. So that's really one of the reasons why I started, a business in the Web3 space as I was figuring this out at the same time too.
Talk about the name. I'm always curious on the names of companies and the Dash in Between. Talk about the origin of that.
Yeah, so to really make it real simple, so on your gravestone, you have the day you're born and the day you die. In between that, that's what everybody comes to your funeral for. You're the only people there that was, when you were born was your mom and, dad or whoever was there in the hospital. And then the people that, when you die, I mean, most of the people are just coming for everything that came before that death. And so really that dash in between for me is really where all your creativity, your life lessons, your ups, your downs, everything about you as a person is in that little line that we kind of disregard when we look at it. So that's really kind of where the whole concept of dash in between came from, is that, looking at, the whole human lifespan, the most important part is probably the most disregarded in that little line in between.
Right. Yeah. You have to really think about when you actually said that. You have to go, oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's been a fun process. Let's just put it like that. It's been a fun process just putting together this whole
I love the name of the company and what it stands for. It's a great story. Talk about so you start a company. I mean, a lot of crap happens. What was your biggest aha or surprise or, oh my God, I don't know this was going to happen?
Yeah. Start my company. Bitcoin is at all-time highs. I think it was like 69,000. Bitcoin crashes to 16K. In my first year starting a business in Web3 and cryptocurrency, FTX, all like SEC, everything that could have gone wrong in Web3 literally happened in my first year of business. And so now, as I'm coming out and trying to teach people about Web3, the only thing they want to talk about is it's a scam. FTX. Oh, what about, people losing billions of dollars? And then after that, I think Terra Luna was like another $56 billion. So now it was just scam after scam. And then NFTs was another scam. So the biggest aha for me was, you can sometimes jump in with 2 feet and get completely swept away. But for me, it was really, and that's where I see that bear market time it was a great learning point for me, because now the hype was gone, which allowed me the time to educate myself. Because really, like at that time, I really stopped selling or like going out like that. I was really trying to learn how I could learn this well enough to be able to explain it to a kid. That's really how I tried to get to the point was, while it's in the gutter, while most people are underestimating it, how can I learn this to the point where now once it starts picking up steam again, it's a no-brainer on how I'm understanding the tech, how I understand, the infrastructure, the impact, the many different industries that it's going to be able to touch. And I think that, 2 ways, it worked out great, because it kind of cleared out a lot of the hype. But then for me, it gave me a great time to learn and educate myself on what was to come in this space.
Yeah, no, I love that. So talk about, you describe your agency as a, cutting edge creative agency in Web3, AI, game development. You're using innovation, storytelling, and new age technology to help clients. But, talk about, kind of representative companies, types of companies, industries that you're focused on and you can help.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things for me is trying to have an impact with this new technology. I think that you probably very much well know we're in this kind of tech bubble where everything with AI is just getting a bunch of money. And it's whether it's Microsoft Office rewrapped with, hey, you can talk to Microsoft Office and they'll give you a Google Doc. And it's like, okay, why are they getting $50 billion and we still have homeless veterans? So for me, I was like, okay, how can I start working with, and again, gaming is one thing, but how can I start working in energy? That's when I started looking into food and agriculture. That was the Produce Matrix platform that, we ended up getting a technology grant for that, because now it's how can we make farmers market more accessible? That's food. So then now my next thing was like, my mom's a wound care professional for a long time. And one of the big things that's ailing the elderly community is diabetes and wound amputation. And that's due to, lack of, specialists. And then at the same time, too, there's not proper products in there that, these patients want to wear. So my mom came to me, and we actually, last year received we have our full patent on a medical device for pressure reduction. It's a pressure reduction boot. It's called Pressure Free. So we developed that. We have a full engineer team. We did 3D printing. We have fabric specialists and all these other things, which, again, if I completely out of my wheelhouse, I'm not in medicine or anything like that. Right. But, with AI and things like that, I was like, how can I use this technology to start problem solving? Because I think that a lot of the technology is missing a lot of the things that us as humans need. And we're going towards these scalable businesses and projects to get people DoorDash food faster. And we have 80 different versions of, this AI video generation model. It's like, okay, how can we get these, like water is a huge issue.
Right.
Nobody's come out with an AI water company yet to be like, hey,
right.
This is how we're going to take plastic waste and heat it. And so for me, I was like, okay, I need to start working with industries or individuals that aren't using the emerging technology that I see being the next step. And how can I get them to understand with my agency and through these, like I said, these conversations? Because what I've realized is that a lot of people understand this emerging technology when you bring it to them in a conversational way and not try to talk over their heads. And that's where I really felt that, again, how I got into healthcare. Now I'm in agriculture. We're looking into, getting into energy as well too. It's really just, curiosity. I think that's one of the biggest things. Just coming back to you before is like, I just become really curious on, how I can possibly bring, my knowledge in this emerging technology into almost every industry that is currently on the map and make it better and more efficient.
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
Talk a little bit more about Produce Matrix, because you explained it at the Heartland Digital Asset Exchange and what you were doing there, and but I think it's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, so as we very much well know, everybody is starting to get on the health train. How can they eat better and those different type of things? One of the things that we always think about is either growing your own food or shopping local. When you think about shopping local, you have to usually go to the farmer's market, which if you're going to the farmer's market is Saturday or Sunday. As many Americans and anybody in general, we're all busy working, and Saturdays and Sundays, specifically in the morning time, most of us want to just sleep in. It's just honest fact. Just like everybody else, I was like, okay, there has to be a simpler way of farmers market, like accessibility. What kind of sped up that concept was we had an ice storm. I don't know if you remember maybe a couple years ago where it was a pretty bad ice storm that we had, and there was power out. So we didn't have power in here in the apartment. I didn't have any fresh food. The grocery store was closed. And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm not technically in a food desert, but due to this weather emergency, myself and probably everybody around me is basically a few days away from probably, not to say chaos, but some crazy stuff happening because people are going to start looking for food. that's what kind of spurred me into like, okay, how can I make farmers market more accessible, as easy as, okay, like an Etsy, to where, all right, I grow stuff in my backyard. Here's my profile. Boom, I can just create it. And then now as a consumer, how can I get accessibility on a marketplace, one-stop shop, to say, okay, I can shop with this farmer and this farmer without having to go to all 50 of their pages in one place. So that's really kind of what the concept came from. And then now going down the rabbit hole of why every farm, I personally think every farmer should know about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because, they have financial issues in a matter of, with the USDA funding cuts and things like that, how they can be able to start learning this new technology. Because if they don't learn it, we suffer as people that get that food. If your farmer can't finance himself, guess who doesn't get food? That's us. So that's one of the things that, again, I saw as a great opportunity to take a space like food and agriculture, and especially local economies. Because one statistic that I came across is that a dollar spent has a 3 times multiplier inside of a local economy when you spend it, like I said, with your local farmer, because now they'll go buy soil, go buy seeds right there in the local economy, and that now circulates that dollar better. So that was one of the reasons why I started the platform, and again, selfishly, so that way I can get some great relationships with farmers. That worst come to worst, if it doesn't work, I got a couple of farmers that I can call up and be like, hey, can I get some stuff for a good price? Because so yeah, that was one of the things too. So now that's what came with the process.
So you use Web3 technology to build the platform and all that, but are you paying out the farmers in any time of cryptocurrency, or is it?
Again, just kind of understanding the market and not trying to force feed this technology, because again, understanding your customer is probably one of the best things you can do as an entrepreneur, as a business. Most farmers could care less about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and Rich. I don't care what it does, but what they do care about is, if I can get you money faster than traditionally, I don't care what the technology is in between, just get it to me faster.
Right.
So for me, it's an education process on, okay, hey, I'll pay you the way that you're normally used to accepting it, which will take a few days to your traditional bank. We all know it takes about 2 or so days to get, for me to send money to their bank. But then now I put this as an option. I say, hey, we have this option to pay you basically the same money, and probably within, at the most, a few hours, probably in the next couple minutes. And so now it's like, okay, if you come to farmers market and you sold, and then now you're supposed to get your money and it's going to take 2 to 5 days, but then somebody says, hey, I can pay you out within the next couple hours, you're going to most likely learn. And that's where I feel that these companies, rather than us trying to, and I say us, but rather than people trying to force the technology, show it as an option, because you're naturally going to choose the better option, because it's just like with Google Maps. You're going to go up and be like, okay, which one's going to get me there faster? You're always going to choose the faster option. It may take you a way that you don't understand, but you'll be like, oh, okay, 25 minutes compared to 40 minutes. Oh yeah, I'm choosing 25.
Right.
So yeah, that was one of the ways that we're, again, trying to educate them first. Because again, not trying to be like, oh yeah, you need to learn crypto. The first thing they're going to, again, I tried it and they were like, get out of here, man. I barely like to do the TikTok posts and all this other stuff. Now you're talking about this new money. No. So yeah.
Next June in Kansas City, we're one of the host cities for the 2026 World Cup. Yep. You started KCSMB. Talk about that.
We have an opportunity of a lifetime, as what you would say, Jeff, is that we have the World Cup, world's biggest event, coming here. I think they anticipate about 3 billion people tuning in to the World Cup. I might even be underestimating those numbers. Kansas City was selected as a host city. We're the smallest out of all the host cities. We're one of the only Midwest cities selected, outside of Dallas and Houston, which is technically the South. So I don't even count that as Midwest.
Yeah, definitely not.
Definitely not Midwest. So that's what I'm saying. So like, we're the only city within the Midwest. We had the NFL draft in 2023, which left a bad taste in a lot of small businesses' mouth because of the fact of the way that the process was kind of handled. There was a lot of focus only towards, the draft area, which impacted the traffic to a lot of these small businesses. And so with that, we started having conversation. A couple of business partners and I started doing meetups, just having the conversations with, what are the real issues that happen with that large event, or what do you guys need? And so what we kind of realized is that there's a lot of people, 650,000 people expected to come to Kansas City. And if you're a small business, you don't have really a way to capture those people coming here and be able to engage with them unless they walk in your doors. And so for us, I was like, okay, what if we could create a easy way to curate a local experience here in Kansas City using AI in this case, but then now also help small businesses on the back end nurture those leads. So with that, we came up with the platform KCSMB, which you go onto the platform, answer about 9 questions. We'd like to keep it short because people have short attention spans and don't want to be answering too many questions. But then at the end, you get an itinerary directly to your email. For businesses, it's free for them to list their business currently right now, but then now we'll be having a dashboard with analytics and different things like that for a paid membership. But more or less, at the end of the day, it's a lead generator for businesses. But then at the same time, it's an AI, personal AI tour guide that local residents, visitors, and again, those international people that are going to be coming here can be able to go directly to these small businesses without having to hassle themselves too much with Google searches and probably not too localized Chat GPT searches if in that case.
Yeah, so I actually did take I did the assessment. I went through it before our call today. I was impressed. I pretended I was coming in as a domestic U.S. citizen.
Yep.
And put some stuff in, even dive bars, and was very nice recommendation there. Yeah, so it was very nice. I got it immediately. I thought it was great. I think I did a 4-day trip and had recommendations for each of the days. So yeah, it was very cool. So
yeah, I appreciate you testing that out, and especially too, like what you mentioned, we started also doing, and with the World Cup, we started doing youth soccer activations as well. Again, another way to get small businesses involved with my partners, Business Speaks LLC, and then also to Challenger Sports, who's located here in Kansas City. They do a lot of stuff in the youth activation side of things. We did a partnership with Casey Parks and Rec at 9th and Van Brunt. We did an activation, had about 100 kids out there. One thing we saw is that health and wellness is something that, child diabetes is something that's on the rise, how we can be able to combat that, but then now using the game of soccer to be able to highlight the many opportunities that it brings from, an economic development side of things, but then also too, for those opportunities for, for those youth, like I said, reffing, coaching, data analytics, videographers, social media. There's so many touch points to where, again, youth entrepreneurship is another thing we're wanting to discuss on how they can be able to get involved. And what better event than the World Cup to be able to showcase, the many opportunities that the game provides.
Besides the World Cup and what you're doing with KCSMB, what's next for Dash in Between? Like, what do you see in 2026 at least? I know it's hard to predict the future, so I'll just kind of keep it to the next 6 to 12 months.
What I'll see in the next 12 months? $1 billion?
Right.
No.
And you can reach Rich to invest at 913.
Yeah, we'll have the email in there for you guys to. No, but for the next 12 months, obviously, World Cup coming up. That's a big focus. Being able to get, my main thing right now with KCSMB is starting those conversations with small businesses on preparing, because it's hard for a lot of small businesses to look out that far with concerns around pricing and tariffs and things like that are impacting their day to day, but also emphasizing to them that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that probably won't be here for the next, for some people's next lifetime. I don't know if I'll see another World Cup to come to a city that I'm currently in. Like, it's one thing to be in your state. It's another,
right.
Like it's one thing for it to be in your country. It's another thing for it to be in your state. It's a whole nother ballgame for it to be literally in your city. And
right.
So I think that, for me, that's kind of the emphasis, is trying to get these businesses, one, listed, getting, these conversations. Funding is a huge, hurdle right now. So we're actually working on a crypto DeFi funding opportunity to be able to bring funds to these small businesses, because that's a huge thing on resources, on providing that and doing it in a decentralized, faster way. I think is one of the things that we're trying to do, because that's really going to be a hindrance to the experience here in Kansas City. Because again, we can sit here and talk about, oh yeah, hey, this chicken spot needs to get 50,000 wings, but if they can't qualify for a traditional loan and that's the only way they can get money, that's a problem, because now when they run out, everybody feels that impact. And so that's really kind of one of our emphasis alongside of, like I said, the soccer activations, with us kind of picking up steam with that too. We're actually, so I guess I'm kind of going down a list of what I'm all doing the next 6 months. We have a custom soccer game that we're coming out with that we're going to be building out, featuring local small businesses and brands and things like that. Love to talk to you about getting the corporate couch in there and stuff like that, get you guys in the space.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, because again, I think that where my business falls, and especially for Dash in Between, is I feel like I have to fall in between the technology and these current businesses and entrepreneurs, because there's a huge gap on the tech's moving so fast that most people in their day-to-day can't sit and take the time to educate themselves. And so it's for me to be able to break it down to a bite-sized way to say, hey, like, AI is not as scary as you think. Crypto is not as scary as you think. This is the way that you can implement it in your business now and today.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I see it over the next 6 to 12 months, really dashing between, and, Produce Matrix and the many projects that I'm working on is how can I properly, doing things like this. One of the things when you're building a lot, getting out and talking about what you're doing is a huge thing. That's a whole nother ball game. So now I'm also trying to build my team as well, too, as what you mentioned is being able to have the right teams and partners. Again, Corporate Couch, appreciate, bringing me on, because this is one of the things that I put as my emphasis is I need to get the word out as much as I, do, is that I need more people to kind of, be like, oh yeah, hey, I would love to be a part of that. Or, hey, I would love to learn more. And it's, platforms like this, Jeff, that you're building that allows the ecosystem. We always talk about ESOs. It's things like this that allow for it to be able to expand and now scale. And who knows, ends up watching this and reading it and says, you know what, hey, I want to work with Rich and be able to expand on that idea, which then now came from us just sitting on the corporate couch and having a conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to applaud you also, Rich, because I will say, when I went to that Casey Futures DAO kickoff event last May of 2024, neophyte in the Web3 space, I learned a ton during that whole day session. But one of the big takeaways I had from that, and you implemented, was, hey, it was May of, I think it was May 16th of 2024. It was like 764 days to the World Cup at that point, give or take. And one of the emphasis of the Casey DAO, talking about this World Cup is this: how can we help small businesses take advantage using Web3 technology? And you did it, and that's phenomenal that you took something and ran with it. And I know you're not only strategic and creative, you're good at tactical execution, and obviously I saw that and when you created KC SMB. So congrats to you on doing that.
I appreciate it. And like what you mentioned, I think that when you think outside of just yourself, because that's the main thing, is like KCSMB is nothing without, the great businesses here in Kansas City. The more businesses that get listed and the more businesses that are inside the platform, the better experience that, visitors and residents get when they, go for those searches. So I think that that's one of the things with this technology, as what you mentioned with Web3, is that if you can think of the community, or if you can think of the masses and what they want or what they need, specifically from a solution-based side of things, the whole point of this technology is for it to be decentralized. How can it be something that, just like nature, it's always providing abundance? And that's really kind of what, for me, I'm really excited about this technology and where it's going. And when these creative minds come in, and they're, backed by, the necessary resources to be able to really innovate, I feel like it ends up benefiting us as humanity, especially, with a lot of the things that are going on. And it seems that a lot of hope is taken away from a lot of people because of what data centers and these things. But I think that we also have some great opportunities with this emerging technology to really shift the needle on what we're doing currently.
And it's interesting you mentioned abundance, because I know a lot of these books that are out there in this Web3 space helping explain it talk about abundance. So I love that mentality. It's not just about, I think the internet 1.0 and 2.0 was about more about, making money. Not that it was scarcity, but, I think Web3, and Anthony Basili said it in the Heartland Digital Asset Exchange event earlier. I guess now it's last month, September. Talked about Web3 is the internet of money. So it's time to kind of decentralize and make it more available to people to thrive and be abundant. So I think it's so interesting. Rich, I love your thoughts. Anything like people like me are always asking, hey, what can I listen to? What can I read to get more up to speed? Any recommendations you have, or YouTube videos?
I'll start with the Bitcoin Standard. Definitely a good one. I believe it's a Bitcoin podcast that we're being with, I might be saying the name wrong, with Preston Pish. It's like a sub-series under We Study Billionaires that they talk. He has a lot of great experts come on there and talk about things ranging from Bitcoin and energy and credit side of things of Bitcoin. It's like it's sometimes when I get hit with the expert side of things, I'm like, and I listen to some of these guys, I'm like, that's why I get excited, because there's so much more for me to learn. It's always expanding and evolving. A book that I really like that does not have to do with technology, two of them, Think and Grow Rich and The Richest Man in Babylon.
Two classics. Yeah, I love those. Yeah.
Those two, I don't know if you know Jim Rohn.
Yep. I don't know him personally.
Yeah, but like I said, no, that was somebody that, especially during the pandemic time, I was listening to a lot. I was, like I said, when I was kind of during that, rabbit hole of soul searching, what am I going to do next? I was listening to a lot of speakers, and Jim Rohn was one of those guys, and he said something, and this is where it was to the challenge side of things. He suggested for people to go read The Richest Man in Babylon. And he said 9 out of 10 people will not go and read it. So just because he said that, I literally hopped on Amazon and ordered it so that way I could be in the 10%.
There you go.
That was the only reason why I was like, okay. And then I read it and I was like, man, this is a really good book. But then there's a lot of YouTube interviews. For instance, Michael Saylor talking about, currently, what they're doing with micro strategy, especially if you're talking to like large capital market people that are looking to see the innovative ways of what they're doing with with public equity and stuff like that. Probably be one of the people that I would suggest in the YouTube space to listen to from a lot of his. And the What Is Money podcast is another one too.
Well, I'm glad we started talking about this because I almost forgot to mention another great way to learn about it is Crypto Mondays in Kansas City. So yep. I know you're the organizer of that through Lou
Kerner. Yep,
Lou Kerner started. Yep. But yeah, talk about that and maybe talk about Lou's background because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, so Crypto Mondays is a global, as a decentralized global meetup. Where more or less, if you're in a city or country, you can basically start, these meetups. Starting last year, we weren't really having anything in the Web3 kind of like meetup space for people to just have those conversations and whatnot. And so I was like, well, there's nobody doing the Crypto Mondays Kansas City. There's about 60 global chapters. So I was just like, hey, how do we do one here in Kansas City? So started doing that. Connected with, I've been working with Lisa Syme and, people out there in Wyoming. They came out for the first one. And again, we had a conversation with a crypto lawyer on, what were the law changes starting to happen. And it was great because, we had ranging people from, industry bankers to, people that were bringing their kids to just learn about it. And so that's really kind of where it started, is this, how can we get the community to just not like selling you things or anything like that, just get you in the room to, bump shoulders with some of these other, as I say, Web3 weirdos per se, to just like have those genuine conversations over a drink and maybe, some food and stuff like that. With that, picked up steam, been doing it for the last 9 or so months. Had Lou Kerner last month, who's the global founder of that. He comes from a background in Wall Street, and now he's, full-fledged into the crypto space. And he came out and, talked with the community before the HDAX event the following day. And again, I think that that's one of the things, is that seeing that people at that level want to be able to just come to the community and be able to engage from an education side of things, is that I think that's one of the differences in this new Web3 kind of movement, is that before it would be pretty much impossible to get like Steve Jobs to come to like a little meet and greet during the Web2 times, And so I think
Good luck.
Exactly. So I think that it's being able to have, those, trailblazers, those people that have been early in the game, to explain to people that, hey, 100, and even though it sounds crazy, 120,000 Bitcoin is not about the money. It's about getting off zero, is what, Anthony had mentioned. Just get off zero, start learning about it. And that's really kind of one of the focuses for Crypto Mondays, is how can we get people wallets? How can we get them, their first NFT? We've given away, first bits of Bitcoin to people that came and they're like, man, now I'm interested in accepting it in my business. And that's really kind of where Dash in Between for me it just became an extension of it, because I just want more people to learn about this stuff, because I've seen, the opportunities that it's provided just only for me, but then I see for the youth, but then also for people, and even the older generations, of what we talked about too, is like preserving wealth and passing on that wealth is a huge thing that you want to be able to do on your terms and your accord without permission. So I think that it has a lot of opportunities for all ages.
Yeah, and one thing I was lucky enough to attend that Crypto Monday last month with Lou Kerner, and I think the great thing for me was, it's still early in this Web3 game. I mean, yes, it would have been great to invest in Bitcoin 10 years ago, but it's still a growing, and it's you haven't missed the boat is the bottom line, and you just have to do it. Get off zero,
Literally.
And that means, have some part of your portfolio into this new space of cryptocurrency or invest in Coinbase or whatever it is, and just start learning. And I think the other thing, and you're a curious person, and Gary Cardone, who I interviewed for the HDAX, I mean, it's all about curiosity. So just don't be afraid of it, learn, and you'll become somewhat of an expert.
Oh yeah, like I said,
field.
and one of the barometers, like the way I do, like to test where it's at, I tell people all the time, ask 9 out of the 10 of the smartest people their thoughts on Bitcoin. I can guarantee you most of them are going to have negative thoughts on it because most people just don't fundamentally understand it. And that's for me, when I talk to really smart people, and they either smart people or very wealthy people, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a scam, or I say, oh well, perfect. Still early in the game.
Rich, I love helping two groups of people. One's at either a recent high school graduate who's going to go right to a professional career, or a recent college graduate. What advice do you have for them as they begin their search for their first professional job and begin their professional career?
Oh man, you're dating me now. Now you're making me seem like I'm that guy that's getting advice from now. Oh man, I think probably the biggest thing, and I got this from a speaker I was listening to, is follow your curiosity. A lot of times we get told to follow your passion, but I think that when you follow your curiosity, whether that's in arts, whether that's in technology, whatever it may be, it's harder to get burnt out, if that makes sense, because now you're always trying to learn. And I think that's one of the reasons why, sometimes it even gets me in trouble, is that a lot of this stuff doesn't feel like work. And so it's because I'm just constantly learning. And when you put yourself in that student state, and that's what I would say is that for the young generation, is put yourself in a student state to where it's like, okay, what industry could I go into that I would feel like I'm going to learn for the next 10, 15, 20 years, because of the fact that the possibilities are endless. And if you say that and look at a specific industry, I mean, the jobs are going to be there. The thing is just seeing the opportunity to either create the jobs or create that path for yourself. So that's one of the biggest things I would say, is that, for those young kids that, again, unemployment especially is rather high, especially in the youth, because, they're replacing entry-level jobs with AI. I think that being able to be a problem solver and follow your curiosity probably is two of the biggest things that I would suggest to the next generation.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mentor recent college graduates, and one of the things I always tell them is, your college has ended or your high school's ended, but now the real learning starts, because a lot of, education is memorization and things like that. But it's really the curiosity, like you said, and the continuous learning are two skills you need to have, and they're both can be developed. You don't have to be born curious, and actually all babies are born curious.
Literally. So you
take it out of them with schooling.
Exactly.
But that's we could have a whole episode of a podcast based on that. But Rich, the second group is that, once you begin your career, you're usually an individual contributor, while everybody can be a leader. If those that want to take the leadership path and kind of have a group of people under them and, become a manager, and what advice you have in terms of leadership of people that you're responsible for?
The biggest things that a great leader can have is the ability to listen. And especially in the position of leadership, is being able to listen and then now take into account others' opinions. Because it's not easy being a leader and then now relying on other people's input and then now applying it accordingly. And I think that that's the difference of, great leaders is how can I be a leader and be able to put myself first in the matter of accountability if anything goes wrong, but then now being able to put out that accomplishment to my teammate and others. And that's one thing that I don't think that is talked about a lot, is that people think that, just being a leader is, oh, you get all the flowers, you get the Emmy and all this. But if everything goes wrong, you're the one who gets blamed. And
Right.
and that's where there's that in between. And then now when you get that award, you have to now shift that to, hey, let me thank my team because I know I'm nothing without them. As you very
Right.
much well know, like understanding that fine dance
Yeah.
that is done
Yeah.
to be able to be a great leader is you have to be able to listen. And then also too, I mean, patience too. That, oh man, that's probably one of my worst traits. And you could probably ask my mom, is patience. Like if I got like a gift or something like that, I want it now. I don't want to wait till my birthday or anything like that.
Yeah.
So leadership is also being patient with people. A great leader will now try to understand where that person is at, and then now try to see how they can best help them to get to where they need to be, rather than just, yelling and barking orders and things like that. So having the patience to also work with people, especially when you possibly see, whether it's potential and things like that, is a huge thing that I think is needed for a leader.
Yeah, I love that advice. Rich, thanks so much for coming on the Corporate Couch. I love talking to you. You're just, every time I talk to you, I come out a smarter person, and you're just a joy to talk to. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it very much, Jeff. And like I said, this won't be the last time we'll be seeing each other for sure. Definitely look forward to, collaborating on some fun stuff with a lot of fun things to talk about here in the space.
Well, Rich is our second professional football player. We had John McGraw, who actually made it to the big dance in being an NFL player. And Rich, played in the European Football League or leagues for several years and winning some championships. But I just loved his story. Obviously, I haven't experienced it. Well, I guess I did. I ended my high school career thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? Because I'm not playing college. It wasn't that dramatic, but he basically was in the prime of his career, 28 years old, and COVID hits, and basically it shut down. And so he's like, what the hell do I do?
What do I do now? And he didn't end in an injury, which he was very
right. Yes. Yeah. He was at the peak athletically. 28, I believe, is your peak. So he just grew up in the local suburb of Kansas City, Lee Summit, came back to Kansas City, and just, I think he sold sneakers for a while. He got into sports agent type of industry. And then he was a very curious person. So he got into the Bitcoin and learning about Bitcoin and learning about blockchain. Then he went on this entrepreneurial journey of, building out companies using technology and it was like almost like a blockchain creative crypto agency type of thing. He started Crypto Mondays in Kansas City. So Crypto Mondays is there's about 60 different cities that do Crypto Mondays. Lou Kerner, one of the early investors in, I know, at least Facebook, I think some other things like possibly Uber and things like that. He was a Wall Street analyst for years. He started Crypto Mondays. And so Rich has the rights and does a monthly Crypto Mondays in Kansas City. Kansas City's going to be one of the host cities for the World Cup 2026. He built this incredible app for whether you live in the U.S. or live in a foreign country and are coming to Kansas City. You can input all this stuff, and within seconds, will build you an itinerary of where to go. I did it, and I put in, I like happy hours and I like barbecue, and it gave me all this, and dive bars. And it actually, since I know Kansas City, the recommendations were fascinating.
None of which have anything to do with football or soccer or World Cup. But
well, yeah, and I didn't explain it well. It was to promote local businesses so they can make money, because obviously it's going to be at Arrowhead Stadium where, that's going to be, but then the World War I Museum is going to host where the kind of the fan fest is going to be. Uh-huh. But he wants local businesses to get rewarded for all this incoming money and visitors. I mean, it's going to be crazy here for the.
If we have 1 million
2-3 week
visitors,
period.
Come into our hometown for just a few days, we got to keep them occupied somehow.
And then he's basically created a virtual farmers market where people, the farmers can get paid virtually in seconds versus waiting, 3 to 5 days for the bank account to clear or their Venmo payment, they receive the Venmo payment or whatever. I mean, it's just he's just constantly generating ideas, and he's I would say he's one of the biggest Web3 digital asset blockchain experts in Kansas City. So I just enjoyed talking to him. He has a great spirit, and I love his curiosity.
Yeah, and almost everything that he's doing is successful. Or if it's not successful, he's learning something from it and going on, So obviously in football, he was going to be successful. And then when that was not an option anymore, and when sports in general was not an option anymore, this was one of the most interesting pivots that we've ever had.
Oh yeah, right.
In any of our interviews, because it's like, well, where did that come from? That wasn't not only was it not in his training or in his life before then, it didn't even exist before then.
Right.
When you talk about blockchain or cryptocurrency or something like that, it just comes out of the sky, and you kind of wonder, if blockchain didn't exist, if there wasn't something like that, where would he have pivoted? I don't know, but I can about guarantee that pivot would have been successful, because he's just.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it goes to show you, the vast majority of the guests on the Corporate Couch are curious people.
Yeah, or else they wouldn't have been here, right?
Right.
And we hope most of our audience is that way too, and they're wanting to emulate that. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
They're curious how you and I are friends.
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. He talked a little bit about one of the problems in professional sports in general, whether it's NFL or whatever, is that one of the problems is that you have too much money and too much time. Because now all of a sudden you grow up poor and then you go to college, and of course you can't be paid when you're in college, so you don't get paid then, and then all of a sudden you get a $2 million contract, and what do? You've got scammers and family members coming out of the woodwork, and you can only buy so many Ferraris and so many sports cars, right? Where do you do after that? So I think that it's fortunate that most Major League Sports have recognized that now and have programs for their professional athletes to deal with things like that. And I thought that was kind of an interesting background that he talked about. He also talked about Bitcoins generally. And I wrote this down because I thought it was interesting. He said, it's like gold, but it's a limited version of gold. In other words, there are only X number of Bitcoins in the world.
Yeah, I think it's 21 million or something.
Whatever it is, it's X. And you have all these investors clawing after that, and that's one of the things that drives up the money. And every once in a while they throw more over the fence into the pot, and that's exactly what makes gold so valuable, is because there's only so much of it. As a matter of fact, they've even talked about that we have they know how much gold is on the planet Earth, and they can compare that to how much we actually mined, and they can figure out what's left. And because when that's gone, it's gone. The neat thing about gold is it doesn't really ever disappear. It can be remelted and reworked any way that you want it to be. But there's this finite amount of it, and there's all these investors going after it. So it's the same kind of thing that it is with Bitcoin or any kind of currency like that. It was a very, very interesting interview, and I'm tickled to death we had it.
Yeah, no, it's Rich. I'm excited to see what kind of things he does in the future. Joe, what's new with you? Anything good? Anything bad?
I'll tell you what's new with me is that I'm trying to increase my vocabulary.
Why's that?
Because sometimes I like to use a word that I don't understand because it makes me sound photosynthesis.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.